Welcome, everybody. We're going to be talking about understanding how Microsoft Purview can help with your compliance and data governance needs. Welcome, I'm Doug Baker. I'm joined by Sunny on our team, who is going to assist with talking about a lot of the different various compliance frameworks. A little background on me. I was in IT operations before joining Patriot. And so, dealing with a lot of this, dealing with SOX audit is what I dealt with previously in my life. And so happy to talk to you all. And Sunny, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Doug. My name's Sunny Whittier. I am one of the security architects here at Patriot, and I work with Doug on a lot of the compliance side projects. So a lot of data security in my background, and hoping to help answer some questions today about planning your compliance initiative.
Perfect. Yeah, so we'll just go ahead and hop in and talk about it. Why is this all relevant? Kind of the big really reason why we're talking about this is that if you've been tracking, privacy legislation over the last couple of years, you'll notice that a lot of different states and obviously international agencies, for a long time, have had, new policies and IAP.org, they actually track, bills over time. And you can obviously see, a lot more attention has been paid to privacy, tracking all of those things. So because of this, right, orgs are now having to address a lot of the privacy needs that orgs have. And it's really becoming just a lot of different data components that, you can see. So that's really the reason why I like this visual. It covers, hey, how many of them have actually passed, what's been going on. It's just a lot of different things. And so that's why we're talking about it today, kind of bringing light to what options does Microsoft has to this solution, right? How do orgs that have this need, and I know all of you all have this need to track privacy, what are your solutions in the Microsoft SKU, right? And so the first one that we really want to talk about today is going to be Compliance Manager. Compliance Manager is Microsoft's all-up solution for addressing compliance needs and providing a way to kind of track a lot of those different initiatives that you have, right? So we're just going to demo some of these products today and talk about it. Sunny's going to jump in and correct me when I say something wrong about the solution, and we'll go from there. If there is specific questions that you all have or features that are not clear, please post them into chat. We'll try to address them as we can, and we'll go from there. Okay. So Compliance Manager is, again, Microsoft solutions for addressing a lot of those different regulatory needs. If you start looking at it in here, you'll notice that Compliance Manager is, it's similar to Secure Score, or Microsoft has tried to gamify your compliance needs, right? So they have points awarded based on your compliance frameworks that you have selected, and they put a nice tracking mechanism for addressing it. So if we come down here, we can address it based on kind of breakdown of different categories, right? Such as information protection, governance, control access, and those type of things. And then we can go into it and look at each of the different improvement actions based on the regulations we've assessed or selected. How they've really addressed this with all the different orgs is they have assessment templates that you can decide and choose for, what your needs are, right? So, I heard CCPNA, SOX, all of those different types of assessments are included in the solution. And so you can see here they have a lot of different compliance frameworks that Microsoft has taken and converted into an easy to digest format for us as IT professionals, right? So instead of having just use an Excel spreadsheet, you can come in here and say, hey, I want to, go after ISO 2700, 2701, and we're trying to tackle that for our Azure environment or our Dynamics environment, or we're really focused on GDPR requirements for M365. We can use these templates and address it. So that's really kind of how this solution is. You'll notice, again, 20 templates are included for free, and then they have 716 additional templates that you can buy ad hoc as you need them for different regulations you're trying to address. So, Sunny, any thoughts on kind of some of the ones you've seen more commonly?
Yeah, so just a quick note on that. If you want to try out some of those premium templates, Microsoft will actually include a 90-day free trial. So don't be scared off by, the 716 templates. If there's a regulation or standard or certification that you're working toward that isn't included out of the box, you can actually start an assessment on that for 90 days without having to commit your company to purchasing more licenses. But aside from that, some of the assessments that I've seen organizations interested in are, NIST 800-53. We actually had a comment for NIST 171, which is controlled unclassified information. I've had organizations working toward ISO certification and, SOX and also SOC reports, right? So specifically SOC 1 and SOC 2 reports that will give you an assessment of financial and security controls inside your organization.
Fantastic, yeah. And as you can see, a lot of different controls available, really nice solution for addressing it. Go ahead and feel free to post your questions in chat if you have them. Unfortunately, some of the raising hands with this format, we're not able to just bring you into the call. So apologies there. And so one of the nice things, I don't know if you all have seen it, but depending on all of these, you might have multiple regulations that you're going after. And so in this tenant here, I have a couple of different items that I am tracking in here. And so you can build a long list of, hey, we need to do this GDPR assessment, plus we have CCPA or any of the various ones. And one of the nice things I really appreciate about this design from Microsoft is that these solutions or these assessments line up with each other. So Microsoft's done the work of addressing and saying, hey, because Microsoft and this regulation has this policy and this regulation has another policy, they will actually combine the improvement actions in scope for each of these different type of policies. So if one regulation has a requirement of whatever type of protection needed, if you enable password reset or a control in one of the different frameworks, it actually will count it, and all of your technical controls will be available as in the other ones. So it's nice addressment, nice options for addressing, because yes, you can pull that up. You can see you can only have one in here that's you only have to do the work once and not multiple times. So that's one of the features I really appreciated about it. So that's great. One of the other features is also that for some of the controls that they can and they have available, they have actually automatic testing in here, right? So a lot of times what we'll see is, you have to do a lot of different regulations. If someone fills it out one time, it automatically is, counted as complete. But Microsoft, for as many controls as they can, and if you target the M365 resource specifically, they have built as many automated testings of the different controls as possible, right? So in this case, you can see, self-service password has been partially tested. If we look at the different testing sources, right, we can see they have a lot of different options for that. Will include automatic, testing, right? So they'll check, hey, yes, is retention policies published out? Is this done? Who took care of it? Who approved or who did the action? And so that can be a really nice way to look at these and say, hey, yes, we are automating a lot of this process in it.
And Doug, while you're looking at that, I just wanted to call people's attention to the pending update notice there as well. One of the nice components of your compliance manager is it's actually going to track changes in those frameworks over time. So if there's a new requirement for your NIST compliance or any one of those compliance frameworks that you can see, this is going to tell you that there's an update and allow you to assess your organization against that new control, so that you don't have to go out there, do the work to make sure you're keeping track of all these updates that happen all the time in this industry.
Exactly. The only constant is going to be that change, right? So it's nice that Microsoft is addressing that for us, and yeah, we can go ahead and hit accept. And then, yeah, we'll update that policy and now we can say, hey, yep, we know every 6 months, every year, we need to, continuously check for updates, see if we're still compliant for these kind of policies. Yeah, again, a lot of nice work that Microsoft has done to make this easier to use for all of us. This session is being recorded, I believe, using Event Builder, so no need to, I don't need to enable it via Teams, it should be already recorded. So thank you for that comment though. So addressing the needs, obviously Microsoft is trying to make all of this, easy to read and adjust. So each of the recommendations, each of the regulations has been broken down to kind of the controls that you need. And so they've, given good write-ups for all of this that you can address this. You can also use this to assign this out to different team members, right? So if you are going to be dishing out, hey, this is an end user's responsibility, in this case, Alan, we can come in and assign, creating and publishing retention labels to him, and we can come into this and assign and dish out this. So this is a nice other option for you using this as you're tracking this. You can really use this to help, manage this as a project for yourself. You can come in, give out different controls. So the exchange type controls, we can give that to the exchange team. The endpoint team can have their controls, and then they can all have central reporting. So if you're a compliance manager, you're looking to address a lot of these different items, this can be a really nice way for you to put all of this, put controls and get collaboration in here for any of your users. Of course, tracking all of it is going to be a big component, right? So we can come into this and see exactly, in this case, I have 2 different regulations in here. And end users, as they are submitting their evidence, they're submitting their items, they can do all of their testing in here and just really have all of that documented for you, for out, right? So if you're going to require them to send, hey, I need a screenshot of you did this thing in PowerShell, or this access control is done and we need testing of it, you can have them put all this in here, put all the documentation for the testing, and mark it as complete so that, when you need it, when you need to produce all of this, you can hit export on the entire regulation and have it available for your auditors and things like that. Okay. So hopefully that's a helpful kind of review of the products. Sunny, any other features that you kind of find helpful in the solution? I know there's a lot to it. We're doing a cursory overview.
Yeah, well, just to build on what you were saying there about bringing in other people, we kind of want to divide, and conquer when we're talking about any compliance initiatives here. So you want to think about assessors, the people who are going to be running your assessments in the organization. And these are typically the people responsible for governance and compliance in the organization. You also want to make sure that your executives have visibility into these reports, because they're going to be the people who ultimately accept any risk associated with, your security frameworks and compliance frameworks in your industries. And then finally, we're going to have your IT folks, right? And they're going to be responsible for adminning this whole portal, making sure that the assessments that are created actually fire off completely, and making sure the people who are involved in your assessments have the correct access. So we want to make sure we're not just approaching this from an IT point of view. And that's one thing that I see a lot of organizations come in when they're doing compliance side initiatives, right? We think about similar to the security initiatives in our organization, we kind of think that the IT folks are the experts, but in this kind of boundary, you really need to bring in those other stakeholders and make sure that people across your organization have visibility and say into these kinds of initiatives.
Absolutely, that's a great point. Additionally, I did forget one thing. If you have custom needs for this, you can also build out your own custom tracking of different assessments. So if there is something specific to you as an org that isn't met by one of these Microsoft pre-made templates, or something that, hey, we just want to use this for tracking XYZ other solution, you can create your own custom assessment as part of Compliance Manager and build your own solution of, hey, this is the thing that's for us that we're looking to track. And so if you wanted to use this for some custom source, this is also available. Perfect. So I hope that is a good overview of Compliance Manager. Now, that's just one of the kind of ways Microsoft is addressing some of those regulations. Obviously, each of the controls in any of the compliance solution, Microsoft has different solutions for tracking it. So whether it be, data discovery, data tracking with sensitive labels, tagging, DLP policies, retention, Microsoft obviously has a lot of different solutions. We talked about this in our last webinar of kind of all of the all-up features, but one that we didn't focus on and one that's really specifically important for the kind of discussion that we're having with all the different compliance regulations and kind of new updates is really going to be Privacy Manager from Microsoft. And this is a newer set of features that Microsoft has introduced to really, address kind of privacy needs. And so Privacy Manager is an add-on to 365, right? So it's, again, something else above and beyond the fold of, current licensing that most organizations have. But it's really designed to detect, these regulations and help with addressing a lot of these kind of policies. It has essentially 3 different types of policy that it's really designed to address. And that's going to be, really for, a lot of the GDPR type requirements or CCPA, right? Where you're storing a lot of customer data and, maybe it's not needed, right? Maybe you just, storing it and just sitting in your tenant for no purpose. And so we can build out some of these policies to help reduce that data components in your organization and purge it out of your solution. So the first one I really like is the data minimalization one. And this is really for, again, removing content that no one's using, but it has a lot of data sensitive, right? So if you had customer social security numbers that got sent to you over email or you were storing it in the SharePoint site and no one's used it for 5 years, do we really need to store that? Should we be clearing it out of our organization? Well, the policies make this a really easy to address one. It really puts the policy design in your hands, but the decision making in the hands of the end user. So how you set this policy up, it will come in and say, hey, no one's used this investment portfolio doc in the last 90 days, 3 years, whatever you select from a policy standpoint. And then it will essentially take an email the end user that's storing it. So whether it be in their Exchange, their OneDrive, or a SharePoint site, if the owner of it, if it's not being used, you can come in and say, yeah, do we really need that one? And then users can come in and it will either ask them to remove the data, or if it's like an exposed sharing link, it'll come in and say, hey, can we make that private or delete it? And then users can click on it, avoid, see kind of the data that's in the document, and then decide, yep, we actually need to keep that, or no, we can delete that or make it private, depending on the policy type that you have. So this can be a really nice way if you have a lot of different regulations or you're trying to think, holistically about the data you're storing in your tenant, but maybe you're not ready to do an all-up retention policy or deletion schedule. This can be a nice way to ease into that because you're putting a lot of the onus of deciding it on the end user versus having to do a technical control of, say, let's delete that out of everybody's OneDrive because it has a credit card stored in it or, something along those lines. So that's going to be a very helpful one. Again, they have essentially 3 different policies for addressing it. Overexposure is going to be one of them. And then, we as admins can come in and, of course, view everything in here and say, oh, yep, looks like there's some wire information stored in here. Do we really need that data? Or, hey, this HR onboarding stuff from employees that, were terminated 10 years ago. Do we really need to store that? You can come in, you can investigate, and you can view it. Okay. So that can be a nice feature. Let's go ahead and pull up what that looks like in the portal so you can see it kind of live. Give me 1 second on that. So again, Microsoft likes this gamification, and that's kind of going to be the approach across the board with tracking a lot of their new stuff, is like trying to make it easy for you to review, see what's going on with it. So high level, right, you can see kind of policy matches over time, and it makes it easy to see and expose. Of course, again, on the gamification side, all right, they want you to be reducing stuff so they can say, oh yes, look, we have 90 days of history, and yeah, we're making some good progress here as we started this of removing some of that data that maybe we don't need, right? Less data transfers are happening, right? So we can see all of that kind of components in here, and then we can start digging in and tracking each of those different type of regulations. So in this case, if I'm looking at personal data stored, I can drill into it and say, okay, look, here is this item that we have, right? So, we can do some testing beforehand to see, like, do we need this Northwind customer data stored in here, right? No one's touched it in, again, 2 years, right? This is a lot of unstructured data that has a lot of customer information in it. Like, if we don't need that, let's clear it out. And that's kind of the approach that a lot of the different regulations is having. Is like, we need to have good controls on, if we don't need this, let's remove it. Okay. So I like this solution. It's fairly new for what it's kind of addressing, but it really helps with making these different regulations or addressing a lot of the kind of underlying concern with the regulations available for, hey, yes, we shouldn't be storing stuff we don't need, things like that. Sunny, have you had a chance to explore some of this? I know it's fairly new. Wanted to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, it's very new, so I actually haven't had as much of an opportunity to look through this side of the Compliance Center.
Okay. Yeah, and that's the common one that we're seeing, and that's kind of why we wanted to bring it, or I wanted to bring it up as part of this presentation, just because, it's, again, a new feature from Microsoft. The paint is still wet as they are, designing a lot of it, but I think it has some potential for, again, bringing stuff up and saying, hey, this is data that's stored in here, right? The other one that I do want to mention also is Priva subject rights requests. So this is another additional feature that is really designed for addressing kind of the GDPR regulations in, the right to be deleted or right for data to remove, and seeing what organizations have in your environment. So let's take a look at what this one can do. And this one's kind of better viewed as a kind of, in the portal, right? So with subject right requests, end users, whatever, via whatever mechanism that they can have a request to see what data we're storing about them in our organization. So this could be an employee, this can be, a customer. They can put in a request to say, hey, are you storing data in mine? And so one of the hard things that we have with a lot of the unstructured data that we all store is addressing that. So Microsoft created this to help with that. And so again, gamification on it, we can put in a request, and Microsoft will help you track, depending on the different regulation, what data that, the time frames that you have with each of these. So let's go ahead and get started with this, and we'll tackle a current employee. And let's put in, I believe Alex is an employee. We'll do Alex. And in this case, we can tackle and put in, what country that this end user is a resident of, right? So if they're, in Europe or something along those lines, we can come in and track that. And then what regulation that they're requesting it to be removed on. And so each of these different regulations have different time frames and different times that, hey, this needs to be achieved by. And we can basically create this and start tracking and start collecting data that's, all about Alex, or data that we're storing about each of these individuals in our organization. And so this will give you an option to kind of walk through the general process of either, hey, I want to see what data we're storing on it, and I have an access request, or, in Christine's case, I want my data deleted from my organization. So let's open up one of these so we can see kind of the underlying of what is in each of these data subject requests. So by default, what it includes is kind of like an e-discovery search. It includes all of the pre-canned kind of search options that we need to pull data about that we're storing about Alex. So in this case, we can come in, and once the solution is kicked off, it will go through the process of generating for you anything related to Alex. So whether that be stuff he's created or stuff that is just stored about him. So it'll come in and, search for his employee ID number in unstructured documents. It'll search for, his display name. It'll search for any time, an HR file is calling out this. And then essentially, as part of this, we can come in and review, okay, this might be data related to Alex, right? This is data that we're storing about Alex. This is stuff that doesn't match, right? We don't need this information in this display form. Yeah, maybe he created it, or maybe it's a false positive. So we can come into this, and just like an e-discovery search, we can tag different things as relevant or not relevant, or we can decide, hey, yeah, actually we need to exclude this policy. And so this gives you a nice process for tracking this. You can put notes about it. You can say, hey, this is what we need, and have all of this available for producing for your audit history, right? This is why we decided this, right? This is why we couldn't share with Alex, this data piece, because it had 500 other customers' data in it, right? I'm not going to share with Alex something that then causes us to, violate GDPR because, yeah, Alex maybe asked for, this file, but it's not, it's excluded because this has other people's data as well in it, right? And we're not going to produce, send him all of that data. If, we're not going to have a GDPR requirement or breach because, we were trying to adhere to a GDPR, right? So you can use this to track all of that. You can, look at the data. You can, I believe, also generate the report of, yes, this is all the information. And then I think if we need to, we can decide, yep, in this case of Christine, this data is approved to be deleted from our environment. And then we can come in and track that and remove that from our environment as well. So any of that unstructured data that's generated as part of that, we can go ahead and delete it, right? So that's a nice solution additionally to track this. So again, good option here. And again, they've tried to gamify it. They've added a lot of different automations, collaborations, and you can tell the Microsoft team is really working hard to build solutions that people need. Okay. Sunny, any feedback on this one? Is this something that you've played with or used the previous solutions that Microsoft has for it?
Yeah, so just continuing on the thread of collaborators and bringing in those stakeholders from other parts of your organization, one of the cool things that this does, and I apologize if you mentioned this, but when we create collaborators, those members of your organization are automatically collected into a new Teams team so that you can then use that Teams channel to communicate about these kinds of requests. So kind of a neat integration there that again just facilitates inter-organizational communication while you're going through this process.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, I mean, obviously a lot of compliance is, really, it's not just one person doing it and tracking it. It is, like many things in security, it's an organization that makes it adjustable or makes it happen, right? And so having all of those items, having it may be able to collaborate easily, makes things go farther, faster. Perfect. So again, a nice solution, for addressing all of that capabilities. Of course, Microsoft had, user data search as well as e-discovery as a previous, feature set. So if you're not wanting to upgrade to this, you do have all of that user data search option in here. Again, this is, their first version of this, first iteration, where it just lets you search. Again, the subject request option in here, it really again puts process around it, and that's kind of the big benefit of it in my opinion, right? Where it's going to track hey, when was this set up, when was the request have, and then it kind of goes through all of the process that you need. Otherwise, it's still available via user data search, doing that kind of that search, content discovery kind of components, but this just makes it easier to achieve all of that. Pricing model on this one is a little different. You're actually paying per subject request that you get, right? So if you buy a pack of 50, right, you don't need to purchase another pack until you have gone over that limit. So that can be a nice solution to have, again, to address some of that, especially if you're getting a lot of GDPR requirements. Sure. So I hope this is again a helpful review for anyone out there that is looking to get into this. Now, again, Microsoft has a lot of various other solutions in place to address some of this other components as part of this. Ooh, slide deck disappeared. And apparently my PowerPoint has decided to go kerplunk. So, whether it be regulatory requirements, retention policies, or any of that type of thing in here, Microsoft has, again, a lot of different ways you can address it, but these are 2 or 3 kind of different policies that we wanted to really highlight for everybody as, really addressing that, that new area in this solution. So I hope this was a helpful review. If anybody has questions on any of this, there we go. please let us know in the chat. We can, if there is specific items that you wanted to see more in-depth review of, we're happy to address that now for, any of the other compliance regulations. Just let us know. Now, I am curious, Sunny, any features that you've seen in the new Purview solution, that you really are standing out, that your customers are coming to you and saying, hey, this is top of mind, this is really something that we really are looking to address?
So it's not a new feature, but the initiatives that most organizations are coming to me right now with are really data classification and control, right? So Microsoft Information Protection, that umbrella that's really going to help us to discover data and then classify it and make sure that we put organizational boundaries in place and protections in place so that we can control who has access to that information. So I've been working on a lot of those initiatives, data loss prevention and sensitivity labels particularly are top of mind for a lot of the organizations I'm working with right now.
Yeah, and that makes sense. We'd love to hear from you all also, installing so that I can get this up and running. But if you would like to fill out some of the features that you're interested in, put in some of those items. What solutions are you looking to address? What Purview features are you looking to take on in the next 3 to 6 months? We'd love to know, and we can use this time to track that. Or if there's any other questions that you all have, we'd love to answer them. Yeah, I feel like lately the uptake in sensitivity labels or tracking that, doing data classifications has really increased heavily. I think the other one that I feel like a lot of organizations are very interested in is insider risk management, right? Doing specific detection on that. Those are the two that I've seen that a lot of orgs are really going towards and addressing.
Yeah, that's right. I was actually going to bring up insider risk management as well. This is an issue facing a lot of organizations, and insider risk management within the Purview ecosystem really brings everything together to help you get a good view of what's happening inside your organization instead of just kind of defaulting back to that, Great Wall kind of traditional notion of organizational security.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Pierre put in, someone asked, what is the licensing model for Purview? So that's a great question, and it depends on the feature set that you're looking to do. Oh, yeah, we're getting some attendees voting now. So yeah, you can definitely tell, you're right on. And sensitivity labels is really top of mind for a lot of orgs, and then compliance manager, right? Yeah, those are two features that we see very often taking advantage of. Pierre, you were mentioning pricing or licensing model. So licensing model is a lot of the Purview features are included in various technology from Microsoft. So specifically, your E3 and E5 licenses include a lot of the different Purview features specifically. So in this case, here is like all the different compliance components. You can see some of them are available in E3, but a lot of the big ones are in the E5 buckets, right? And so they have various ways that you could get just, advanced e-discovery or just insider risk management or just the advanced DLP kind of components in it. So depending on what you need, it might be appropriate to go and say, hey, we're going to either tackle the E5 compliance bundle, or you might just say, we have the security bundle, but maybe we just also want this additional information protection and governance component, and you can get it a la carte several different ways. Now, the Priva, the advanced features that we were talking about, that actually solution is a la carte. So all of the compliance manager add-ons, you can purchase it just for what you need, right? So in the case of compliance manager, if there's a regulation that's not included in the default template and you find, hey, we want that, you can just buy a template out that you need to address. Similarly, the the subject request option, that also is available a la carte. So as you're getting a lot of those different subject rights requests, it will come in and say, okay, I need 50. I'm gonna buy a bucket of 50 that I can take advantage of. And so that's a good solution. And again, that's kind of how you can buy each of those things. So Priva, a la carte, and then the rest of the Purview solutions, it's included into the various E5 bundles that we have here. So again, just like that. Hope that answers that question. All right, so if there's no other questions, we'll go and let you all go. Sunny, did you have any final thoughts that you wanted to leave everyone with?
Yeah, my final thought really is just to keep in mind that your compliance initiatives really are organization-wide initiatives. So when you're starting to plan these, make sure you involve your teams like your legal department, your HR department, your C-suite, because everybody's going to have a little bit of expertise that helps your compliance initiatives to really be successful. And if that's the one thing that I can leave you with, do that and plan. That's going to be the hardest part of any initiative. The technical configuration, thanks to Microsoft, is pretty easy. The planning component is really going to be where you spend the most of your time.
Yeah, always a balancing act. Definitely a great point. Bringing the business with you as you're going along these journey, going hand in hand together, right? Making sure that your objectives line up with the technical controls that are possible, and kind of marrying those two. Once you start with a lot of this, it's hard to steer the ship down the road. So having a good plan up front really does help. So. I think that's it for today. Hopefully this was helpful. If you have questions, of course, please feel free to reach out to both Sunny or myself, and we would love to help and assist in any way that y'all need. So again, thanks everybody, and take care.